The balance in the Middle East is being upset again. Israel started to target the Syrian capital Damascus, citing the internal conflicts in the southern Syrian city of Suwayda. Israeli warplanes first hit the General Staff building and then the presidential palace, causing many casualties in the region. Israeli Defense Minister Yisrael Katz announced that the attacks will intensify and new operations are inevitable if the Syrian army does not withdraw completely from Suez. These statements by Katz, who addressed the Druze with the message, "Trust the Israeli army," indicate that Israel is targeting Syria not only militarily, but also ethnically and politically. So what is really going on? Why is Israel attacking Syria? Why has it launched an intervention that extends all the way to Damascus? Or is it just about Suez? Or is there a much deeper strategy behind it? Israel's attacks on Syria are not random military decisions taken on the spur of the moment. Rather, they are the current reflections of a long-standing geopolitical, ideological, and security-based strategy. Behind these attacks lie not only military objectives, but also a much deeper historical memory, a policy of exploiting regional instability to its advantage, and a desire to confine the Middle East to its own security perimeter. In order to understand Israel's policies, which ostensibly draw the profile of an aggressive state, one must first look at historical fears and the doctrine of preemptive strike that these fears produce. Israel's basic strategic reflex in the region is based on the notion of never allowing a strong neighboring state. Behind this is a perception of existence that has been shaped by exile, siege, and the threat of annihilation throughout history. For this reason, Israel considers the re-strengthening or reunification of any neighboring country as a potential threat. As a way to eliminate this threat, it has adopted the doctrine of preventive defense, which involves taking proactive action against attacks that have not yet occurred. This strategy, which is not legitimized by international law, essentially means waging war today against an actor that may pose a threat in the future. Israel has been applying this approach for years in Iran, Lebanon, Gaza, and now Syria. Especially in the Syrian issue, Israel's goal is not only to ensure border security, but also to keep this country fragmented, weak, and constantly engaged in internal conflicts. To this end, Israel aims to turn Syria into a post-1975 Lebanon-like structure where sectarian and ethnic divisions dominate and central authority collapses. In line with this goal, close relations have been established with some groups on the ground. The Druze and the PYD are among these actors. In particular, the contacts established with the Druze tribes in the Suwayda region in southern Syria aim to implement a new version of the strategy of creating a de facto border, which was tried in the Golan Heights. It is clear that Israel wants to replicate this model in other regions. The Druze have a special place in this equation. Formed in the 11th century after breaking away from the Ismailiya sect, this closed religious community has a mystical and philosophical belief system that goes beyond the classical understanding of Islam. Their religious texts are read only by certain individuals, and their closed structure has made them both historically cautious and easily manipulated by external actors. Today, with a population of around 1 million, the Druze live in the triangle of Syria, Lebanon, and Israel. The fact that some Druze citizens living in Israel serve in the Israeli army makes this community an important actor not only in Syria, but also in Israel's overall Middle East strategy. By manipulating this community's historical isolation and problems of belonging, Israel intends to further weaken the centralized structure in Syria. In general terms, Israel's Syria policy is built on three main objectives. The first one is to establish geopolitical control, especially in the Golan-like areas in the south of Syria. Second, to prevent Syria from establishing a strong central government and to systematically sabotage the search for unity in the country. The third, and perhaps the most controversial objective, is to divide Syria into cantons by instrumentalizing ethnic and sectarian sub-identities using groups such as Kurds, Druze, and Turkmens as geopolitical tools. The ultimate goal of these policies is to keep Syria so fragmented that it will never again pose a military or political threat to Israel. Israel is not alone in this process. The military and diplomatic support it receives, especially from the United States, gives Tel Aviv great confidence in implementing these policies. Although the U.S. support for Israel is not unlimited at times, as seen especially in the Trump era, Israel often acts under the West's shield of protection. However, Israeli aggression in the region has the potential to destabilize not only Palestine or Syria, but also American interests in the region. This is why Washington is sometimes confronted with the question, should we curb Israel? But putting this question into practice, i.e. cutting off military and economic support, is almost impossible due to the powerful Jewish lobbies in U.S. politics. In short, Israel's regular attacks not only on Syria, but also on Gaza, Lebanon, and Iran are in fact the result of a regional design strategy rather than a security reflex. Through cross-border operations, airstrikes, intelligence infiltration, and proxy conflicts, Israel wants to remain the sole dominant power in the Middle East. The aim here is not only to defend, but to establish an equation in which everyone is weak and dependent on Israel. This is because the strengthening of any ideologically opposed structure is intolerable for Tel Aviv. Israel's proxy war strategy could destabilize not only Syria, but also Turkey, Iran, and even Europe in the long run. In conclusion, Israel's attacks on Syria have a meaning far beyond the military operations seen on the surface. Behind these attacks, there is a desire to ensure security by fragmenting the region, paranoia of not wanting strong neighbors, a plan to expand its geopolitical sphere of influence through an expansionist policy, and political and military support from the West. At the same time, there is a strategic priority that seeks to suppress any structure that it sees as ideologically threatening before it is born. However, while this strategy may give Israel an advantage in the short term, in the long term, it risks making it a more insecure, isolated, and more war-torn actor.